The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Starquest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars episode 78.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Just a quick reminder, you can get your own official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt or coffee mug, stickers, magnets, all sorts of things that encapsulates our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away. They are available in various sizes and styles. And so you can get your shirt or various accessory at sqpn.com/merch. And I will throw out that we have a new logo up there for the Starquest production network in general. So that one's a good one to look for as well. Also, we have a new way to join the Starquest fan club mailing list. And you can text Starquest to 66866. So that's text Starquest, all one word, to 66866. Super fancy tech way to join the mailing list. Also, of course, please be sure to share the show on your favorite social media so we can reach new audience members, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts so that way we can also get seen by more people on those platforms as well. So today we are discussing the 5th episode of The Bad Batch called Rampage. And tonight, since all my usual co-hosts are unable to join me today, I am very happy to welcome back onto the show a special guest, our CEO of Starquest himself, Dom Bettinelli.
Hello, Father. Great to be here.
Hello. It is wonderful to have you back on the show.
I'm excited.
You're just as much of a Star Wars geek as we are, but
yes. Excited to be back to talk about Star Wars. Because whenever I edit the show every week, I'm always like, I want to discuss this with you guys. So now I get to do that.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of fun with it. Before we begin our discussion on the episode, though, I do have a couple questions for you first.
Okay.
So I asked my co-host this when we started the Bad Batch, and so I want your take on it. Which Bad Batcher do you relate to or identify with the most? Okay,
so my favorite, as in, like, I think the character who embodies the best qualities of the Bad Batch is Hunter. The leader,
okay,
but I also like his heart, and I feel like he's got a real like a fatherly attitude toward Omega, and that I really like that too. And so I really like him best as the character, and I maybe identify with him as the father figure because I'm a dad too. But I also really like Wrecker because he's just a kid. He's a big kid, and I really like that. So it's a little of both, and I'm a little bit like Wrecker in that sense with the sense of humor, and
awesome.
I kind of bumbling through things.
Yeah, I think most of us chose tech, which I was kind of surprised you didn't because of your tech stuff over there. But yeah. It totally makes sense who you'd choose.
Yeah. There's something about Hunter as the leader dad that I like.
And the more that we go along, the more I like Wrecker. He was kind of the one that I was unsure of at first, just because he's just super strength. But when you get to know his character and his personality, he's a big softy, and so I too really like his character now too.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be important in this season, but we'll get to that, I suppose. But yeah,
I think I know where you're going with that, and I think I might have a note there too. The other question that I wanted to throw your way is what do you think overall so far of the Bad Batch series?
Really good, high quality. as good as any of the Clone Wars seasons. And I say that when they first showed up in season 7 of Clone Wars, I was a little unsure. Like, what's this? This seems kind of like a gimmick. But as I watched this season, I start to think, well, where are they going? Like, what is their long story? Where are these characters in 20 years or what, that sort of thing. And I really feel like they've decided to really develop the characters, mostly so far, Echo and Hunter, and even, as we'll get into, Wrecker. I don't feel like Tech is getting as much development. He's sort of pretty much the same. And of course, Crosshair, but that's a whole other that's a whole other kind of development. But I'm enjoying it. I feel like they're putting a lot of complexity into the story. That's not just a straightforward, obstacle of the week. There's more going on, and they're really putting that in there.
Yeah, and I've always really appreciated. It's got a Rebels feel in the sense of we're following another family unit.
Yes,
although we're calling it a squad or Clone Force 99 or. I loved how Omega finally in universe called them the Bad Batchers.
Yes.
Or she so we have sort of a fun nickname to throw their way. They're the Bad Batchers.
Right.
But yeah, I really appreciate that because I mean, Star Wars is kind of meant to be a family sort of friendly show and movies and we can all relate to it and we relate to the different characters at different points and there's something wholeheartedness just about trying to follow a family as they struggle to find their way in this galaxy far, far away.
As we record this, we're recording this on Memorial Day, and it occurs to me that in a family, they are a band of brothers. Because they're soldiers in arms, and like the clones we saw of the 501st and that sort of stuff. There's a real brotherhood in these guys, so that they are brother, but they're also real brothers. They are clone brothers. Yeah, and so you're right. There's a family, but it's different from the Rebels family, and I like it. I think it's a different kind of family,
and that makes Crosshair's separation so much more tragic.
Yes,
and rather than him being the villain that they have to like hunt down and destroy, he's the villain that they need to go save,
right,
and bring back,
right. The brother they need to redeem. Yeah, very true.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the long-term plan, at least with this season. Hopefully there's more, but we'll see where they go. But yeah, I think this is a very, very good next step into the Star Wars galaxy. Jumping into the recap then for this episode, we start off with Omega getting her own personal comm device on their ship. I figured, Dom, you might relate to that just a little bit. Do your kids have cell phones yet?
They have phones without cell service, so we decided to go ease into things so they can take pictures and read audiobooks and Kindle books, but no phone calls and texting yet. But yeah, it's a big step, and it's another element of she's becoming part of the family, part of the crew. They're acknowledging. She's not just with them until they can find a place for her. She is part of their group, the batch.
Yeah, and they're still sort of like hesitant, I think, though, too, because even later on when they go to rescue the Moochie, they leave her at the ship. And I can understand that,
right.
Totally understand that. But there's also still a sense that she's slowly integrating, but she's still young enough and still a child that they're still kind of unsure what to do with her in that kind of a situation. And then she actually pulls through and kind of saves the day.
Well, you notice that Echo, I noticed it throughout this, including in that scene when she gets the communicator, he's very much like putting a cap on her over enthusiasm. He's always pulling her back a bit, quieting her down. It's not a toy. He's being very serious. Hunter had less of a role with her in this episode. There were a couple times where he kind of specifically spoke to her, but I noticed it was more Echo this time, and I wonder if they've decided to make sure, apart from Wrecker, who is the big kid, whether it'll be Tech or Echo or Hunter who will be the ones who are going to variously manage her over time, just to kind of spread that out.
That's an interesting thought. I'd never considered it that way. I sort of always just considered Hunter as the kind of the parental overarching leader of the squad. But I think there's totally merit there that each of them have different different gifts to offer Omega and different insights to give her. And it would fit with some of the theories out there that if Omega does have kind of all the traits of the altered clones, she could learn something from each of them that they couldn't all just combine into one clone or one, just Hunter teaching her everything.
Yeah. On that line, I wonder that there's been some speculation I've seen that Omega it's a danger that she could turn into a kind of Mary Sue or a Wesley Crusher, the kid who saves the day when the Bad Batch, who are the best of the best, suddenly need a kid to save them all the time. Like, she's the one who identifies Sid when the others can't. She gets out of the shuttle before being discovered. She sneaks into the slavery camp. She releases Moochie. That whole thing. I hope I'm not jumping too far ahead, but
no, you're good.
But there's this. I don't think they've crossed the line yet, but there would be a danger of that, of her becoming too much of the magic kid who can solve things when the extremely capable adults seem to be bumbling. I hope that's. I think Filoni is smart enough not to go there.
But I think what it might be doing is foreshadowing future revelations about who Omega is. And at least that's one of my theories, is that I'm wondering if she's Force sensitive. Maybe not like fully, knows even what's going on. But and you pointed out that she recognizes Sid.
Yeah.
And the other nobody else does. Nobody's met Sid before, but she can sense him, and more than just like recognize him from a poster. It was like she just intuitively knew, but how did she know?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, and if she's Force sensitive, then it would explain some of these situations that she's getting the Bad Batchers out of, that, her ability gives her a particular skill set that they don't have.
Right. Yeah. And is she that one of the, as we saw in The Mandalorian, one of these clones that they've been trying to create, the Force sensitive that Moff Gideon is behind? I wouldn't doubt that might be an element.
That is where my brain was going, because it's, especially with the story group, I mean, everything's got to be pointed towards the clone of Palpatine.
Yes.
And because they, at some point, they successfully create a clone that is able to be Force sensitive.
Right. I was teasing my kids that they haven't watched the Bad Batch yet because they're still finishing Clone Wars. But my speculation is, it's really half-hearted speculation. But a couple episodes ago, when the Kaminoans were talking about having someone in a cell that they're trying to hide from Tarkin and Rampart, my speculation was that it's Grogu in there. And then, but I was teasing my kids yesterday that we're going to find out eventually that Grogu grows up and becomes Snoke, and then Kylo Ren cuts him in half. And wouldn't that be the ultimate, like, killing people?
Oh no! I think it would take us forever to mourn that loss if that was the case.
No. Grogu is not Snoke. But I agree. It would be. All of this has to be pointing toward that idea that what Palpatine is heading for, what he's working toward, is his own clone, so that he doesn't have to rely on a Rey to possess her and all that sort of stuff. He can just do it himself. And
you bring up a good point that I sort of expected we would have seen Grogu in the Bad Batch, and there's still plenty of episodes left, but we know he existed at this point in the timeline. So
where did he go? And how did he end up with those guys that the Mandalorian took him from, that gang, and where was he all that time, and why did he have to be kidnapped from them? And there's a lot of questions that are still out there that aren't revealed. I have something I want to say about that, but we'll get to that. We're barely getting to our recap.
We need to go back to the Bad Batchers, as it were. So the Bad Batchers decide that they need to figure out who this bounty hunter is that was tracking Omega that we encountered last week. We, of course, all know who she is. She's Fennec Shan, because we were introduced to her in The Mandalorian, but they don't know who she is. So they decide to go to Ord Mantell, where Echo knows of an informant, Sid, who was an informant to the Jedi during the Clone Wars. So I did some digging, and this is Sid's first appearance and mention. So I wondered if she had shown up in the Clone Wars at all, and she hadn't.
Right.
So this is just something that Echo knew from his time as a clone trooper.
And it's Ord Mantell, which we'd heard about in Empire, or is it Return of the Jedi, where Han says, we almost got caught by that bounty hunter at Ord Mantell. So
I know the quote, but I'm forgetting.
I wonder if
exactly
it was Fennec that almost caught them.
Could be.
Yeah.
And so I think Ord Mantell is, typically associated with bounty hunters.
Right.
So at least in the expanded universe, if not in canon. So they do find Sid's parlor on Ord Mantell, and she is a female Trandoshan, and she claims to know nothing about Sid. And this is what we referred to earlier.
Yeah, played by Rhea Perlman. I don't know if you remember her.
Okay.
She was Carla Tortelli on Cheers, which, as someone from Boston, I know all the people on Cheers, but and also Danny DeVito's wife. But
okay.
But yeah, I heard the voice and I knew, and then so I looked it up. I'm like, yep, Rhea Perlman, awesome. I love that they keep casting these great actors from outside of sci-fi for all these different roles in the different shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure they just love to be part of the Star Wars universe.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody who wouldn't want to be involved, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the point where Omega points out that she is Sid, and so they talk to her about the bounty hunter that they're trying to track down. And so in order for them to get information from Sid, she's going to go look things up, but she wants them to do a job for her. And all that she really says is that she wants them to rescue a child named Moochie, who is taken captive by the Zygerian slavers on the other side of the planet.
Nice misdirection, by the way.
Oh, totally. Totally.
By referring to them as slave traders, the audience immediately pictures a child. It must be a child, a person, not somebody's pet rancor.
Yep. Well, and I looked these guys up. The Zygerian slavers are in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they took Anakin as a slave at one point.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're terrifying.
Yeah.
I just watched those 2 episodes today. So even just kind of hearing that name would have kind of invoked a sense of like, okay, this is serious. They were kind of notoriously known as the most notorious slavers in the galaxy at the time. So they agree to this mission to rescue the child Moochie.
Although, I just want to add, they don't seem keen on the idea of being called mercenaries. They still don't see themselves as anything other than the soldiers they were, loyal to a code. And it's starting to sink in that they're mercenaries now. They're on the run. It's interesting to see that transition.
And that raises a good point too, because I think one of the overarching themes of this whole show is their identity.
Yes.
Because they're no longer clone troopers because the Republic is no more. And they have decided not to be part of the Empire as Crosshair and all the new recruits are. And so, yeah, I think they're still trying to figure out who they are. And this episode sort of sets them up to be that kind of mercenary for hire. Because even Sid at the end of the episode offers them the job of, I'm assuming, more missions that are similar. But Hunter doesn't really jump at that right away. But I think we'll probably come back to that.
Yeah.
So they do agree to do this exchange because they're, of course, still looking for information on the bounty hunter. And as they are traveling across the planet, Wrecker seems to be having more pain in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that this was... I wrote it down in my notes because it was not just... like, there was no reason for him to mention the pain in his head because there was no crash, there was no nothing. So I think it was an intentional highlight of the pain in his head.
It's a clue. Yeah. And we've seen this a couple times. He's in the last couple episodes. Yeah.
Well, and so that begs the question of what's going on. When they crashed on the planet, he hit his head and was complaining of head issues, and that's why he didn't go out with Hunter and Omega as they went to retrieve that part needed for their ship. But I think since it was intentional, I think it's more of a clue to something to do with the inhibitor chip.
Exactly. Yes, I agree.
But I don't even know what that would be. The only thing that I could think of at this point was that his inhibitor chip is damaged and somehow it'll affect things going forward if they get captured and try to have the Kaminoans activate their inhibitor chip or something, and he'll be the one that is able to kind of break free of it. But
I wonder if what they're doing is hinting at that it's going to activate, that the chip, like Crosshair's chip, activated, but for some reason it didn't activate in the others. But the concussion or whatever damaged the chip in such a way as to make it active or try to activate, and that he will want to, but suddenly at some point, because he's so close to Omega. I mean, their relationship is very familiar and friendly, more so even than with the others on a level. And so if he betrays her, that makes it even greater, the pain of the betrayal. And I wonder if that's what we're heading toward, is this Wrecker, because Wrecker is so he's a big brute, but he's such a softie, and for him to go over to the other side would be so devastating.
Yeah.
I think that might be where we're headed.
Actually, I think that's a better idea than what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That would, from a storytelling perspective, that would add a lot more emotional weight and drama.
Yeah.
And of course, it'll be resolved, of course, but that kind of a thing is also good storytelling.
Right. And at some point, they're all going to have to go get those chips out, just like Wolf and Rex and the third guy did. They got their chips out by the time of Rebels, and these guys are going to have to do the same thing.
So yeah, I think that there's something there. So they do get onto the other side of the planet, and they find the slave traders hiding out in the old Ord Mantell city. And there was an interesting dialogue here that Omega asks about the slave traders, and is told, I think Echo is the one talking to her, but Echo says that they are people who sell other people as property. And Omega comments that doesn't seem right. And Echo, of course, tells her because it's not.
Right.
And I appreciated the comments here because for one, it's a subtle nod to natural law, that Omega has she's never encountered slavers before. She has not encountered this sort of thing at all, and yet she inherently knows that something's wrong about forcing other people into slavery. And so that, I think, is just super important, because that speaks to the fact that there is this inherent morality even within Omega. And we would call that, from the Catholic perspective, that's the natural law, that we, as all humans, regardless of culture, regardless of time, we have a sense of morality that is part of how God created us. And so, for example, we all people would agree, no matter what culture in, that murder is wrong. And so this is an example of Omega kind of speaking out of that. And I appreciated that Omega affirms her in that too.
I wonder if Omega will then at some point look at the clones who are bred to be soldiers, who had no choice, and now under the Empire they're not free to leave. They're essentially slaves to the Empire now, and I wonder if that's going to affect this story going forward as well. Like, I don't want to. There's so many chosen ones, quote unquote, in Star Wars that we don't need another chosen one. But is she going to grow up to be a leader in the Rebel Alliance who will fight on behalf of the rights of the clones or something along those lines? I don't know. Interesting.
And that's even just an interesting sort of concept too, because the clones, or even the stormtroopers, while essentially they're slaves, they also, at least the recruits, are initially willing recruits.
The recruits,
so they've sort of, but the clone troopers, of course, were not. But then on the flip side, the Clone Wars did a really good job of humanizing them and showing that they do have free will, and we have Rex and everybody who's broken free from that.
Yes, but they had to escape.
So
they went AWOL. They essentially.
Well, but even the Bad Batchers, that's exactly what they did too. Is they escaped that. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot coming at Omega, at least on an emotional level.
Yeah, there's always been this question of the morality of a clone army, and whether that's a slave army or not. And I think I hope they kind of confront that. That would be good.
Well, and even in Star Wars, they sort of do the same thing with the droid army.
Yeah,
not so much. I'm thinking of Solo, the movie. And
I want to say Leet, but
L3?
L3,
no.
yeah.
Is it L3?
L3.
You know, and her leading the droid rebellion or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, so they're definitely kind of trying to play some of those moralities out, and
good for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not a good thing in in terms of morality to force any of these sort of things. Of course, thankfully, we're not cloning armies or having right, yeah, or going all Terminator and having a droid army. So,
I for one welcome our robot overlords. You know, the scene where they're standing on the cliff looking down, you know, when they're spying on them, it reminded me of The Mandalorian, a bounty to rescue a child from a gang, right down to spying on the gang from a nearby cliff.
Yeah,
I have to wonder whether that's an intentional, homage or something.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhat intentional, because there are all sorts of parallels to The Mandalorian. Even just with Omega and Grogu.
Yeah,
you can see both of them as a similar character, and I mean, I think after 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, Filoni has learned what worked really well in The Mandalorian, and then of course what worked well in the Clone Wars, and can kind of combine them to make it work for the Bad Batch.
Right. I agree.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a subconscious sort of homage going on there as well. And so at that point actually is when they spot the slaves that they think that they're supposed to rescue.
Yep.
And they are 2 Falleen characters. So one of them is a child, and one of them is probably the one of the parents. And so they all head off to go rescue the child who they think is Muchi, and they have Omega stay at the ship. And as in pretty much every episode, things fall apart.
Yes.
And they don't go to plan. And the entire group, the Bad Batchers, all get captured, and they got attacked by these kind of dragon creatures, and then are captured by the slavers.
They felt a little overconfident going in. If you think, I mean, they felt like, oh, this is nothing. It'll be easy. They were a little overconfident here.
Your overconfidence will be your downfall. Undoing.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, I knew there was a quote there.
Yeah.
But this sets up exactly what Omega's going to do. Is she's gonna come in and save the day. But before that, I just wanted to point out that this is the part in the episode where she did get one of those. Apparently, they make stuffed clone troopers for kids.
Yeah. War propaganda, I guess. But
right. But that's where she finally she's telling the Gong droid that she made some alterations to the trooper, and now she's a Bad Batcher.
Yes.
And at that point, the Zygurians board the ship and look around, but Omega hides and escapes before they notice, of course. And she tries to use her comm to call them.
Yep.
And of course, they can't reply because they have their comms taken away. And so she realizes that they've been captured. And then we go into the climax of the episode where there's the Omega releases the Rancor, which was
release the Muchi.
Right. And we have the fantastic switch of the episode that Muchi is not actually that child, but Muchi is the baby Rancor.
Yes. I love the fact that there's humor in how they do this. This is a very good comedic timing in this sequence. Like they reveal that Muchi, like the guy points, no, that's Muchi over there, and then we turn the viewpoint and we see Zygurians flying through the air. Like, oh great, now we have to capture that, And it was just it was really nice comedic timing. Now, I by this point I'd figured out, and I think probably most of the audience had figured out that Muchi was not the little green girl, but was the creature in the thing. But yeah, it was, and partly because we saw Sio Bibble talking to Sid via the hologram in her office, which kind of showed this is. But we should probably say right off the bat, Muchi is pretty clearly the rancor that Luke kills, right?
Nope.
No.
So I had to look this up.
Okay.
And so the rancor that Luke kills is named Patissa and is male.
Okay.
Muchi is female.
Yeah.
And I guess we don't know how old rancors grow to be.
That's true.
But canonically, they are two different rancors.
Okay.
Which, as some people pointed out, might be really helpful to the younger kids watching this episode to know that Muchi is not the one that perishes by spikes and the gate coming down with Luke.
And the poor rancor keeper crying.
Right.
I love that guy.
But it does point out that Jabba likes his exotic pets.
He does.
He's got more. He's got at least 2 rancors, if not more.
Yeah. It always kind of bugged me in certain novels, Star Wars novels, when they reuse elements too often. Like there's got to be more than one apex predator from these various planets that is, you know, like a rancor, like really dangerous. But like what was the series of books, the trilogy that was Aftermath?
The Aftermath trilogy.
The Aftermath trilogy. There was a point in the first novel, the first one of those novels, where he was like, "Oh, it's worse than a rancor in a rainstorm," or so, I don't know, some silly thing like that. And it's like, why is it always like you're mining the well of instead of creating something new, you're going back to this touchstone that we always go to. Now, this is fine. I don't have a problem because it's Jabba. And they're doing things that make us recognize the characters, and puts it in the place of the world that we want. But there's a danger of doing that too much and too many coincidences, and you know, it's a whole galaxy. There's more than 3 huts in the galaxy, you know, that sort of thing. So, but I'm okay with it here. It was fine here, and Muchi was cute, I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, and there's always a quote unquote rancor on every planet, whether it's a rancor or you know, a grizzly bear on Earth or you know, whatever. It's there's always that kind of nefarious animal out there. Right.
That's true. Yeah, that was the thing that kind of gets me with that. So
sure.
But it's an animation. The kids are really a target audience, and you want them to be able to recognize things and to connect with it. So I get it with this. Yeah.
Well, and it shows us a different side of a rancor as well, because we know them to be the gladiator style Jabba the Hutt, you know, entertainment and killing beast.
Yeah.
And here we see a baby rancor, which again, you turn anything like that into a baby and it immediately becomes cute and adorable.
I know. You know, I want a Muchi doll like I want a Grogu doll.
Right. You know, but the other thing that I thought was interesting too is that they implied very heavily, and they showed it actually, that they can be domesticated. You know, and that actually kind of speaks into some of my favorite novels from the pre-Disney era. There's and I forget if they brought them into canon or not, but in fact there's a book, The Courtship of Princess Leia. So actually it's where Leia and Han get married, but they go to the planet Dathomir, which Dathomir is in canon. But I don't know if in either way, in the book, Dathomir was like the home planet of the Rancors.
Okay.
And so they were domesticated and they would ride the Rancors like horses.
Like Omega does at the end of this. Yeah.
So I liked that connection, and I don't remember if that came over into to the Disney canon or not, but they're implying that, I mean, they can be domesticated and be used for more than just beast killing humans that upset Jabba the Hutt.
Right. Yeah, they're more than just entertainment devices.
Yeah. And yeah, who knew that a rancor could be cute?
Give him big eyes, anything could be cute.
Yeah. So
I was just gonna say that but we see Wrecker doing the domesticating here.
Yep. Which was also a really comedic sort of thing. Like,
yes.
At one point, as they're nearing the end of it, I wasn't sure who was going to fall first, whether Wrecker was actually going to fall down and not get up, or if the Rancor was. But
right. Yeah, there's that funny. The punching contest to see which of the big guy collapses first. Yeah, that was good. I like that. Wrecker getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course he came out triumphant, and they did rescue Muchi, and they rescued the other slaves. They sent them off on speeder bikes, which was good.
Right, very good.
And then the final kind of couple scenes are bringing Muchi back to Sid and Sid's parlor, and successfully giving her back to Bib Fortuna, and heading off to Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
And then then finally Hunter gets some information on the bounty hunter from Sid, because
I like how Sid calls him into the office, by the way. You, dark and broody, my office.
Right.
I like that. That was good.
But it's so true. Like he is the the broody one
he's the dark and broody one. Yep.
So they finally figured out that her name is Fennec Shand, which, like I said, we already knew, and that she's new to the scene, which also kind of jives with what we know. She's got to be old enough, but still fairly young at this point.
Yeah.
But she's already proven herself to be cunning and ruthless. And of course, she doesn't know who hired her, but they know, or she knows that she's working on a direct commission. So that raises a whole nother question. Who hired Fennec Shand to track down Omega? And we talked about this last week, but Dom, I wanted to know if you have any brilliant theories.
So the obvious one is to say, well, the Kaminoans want Omega back, so they hired her.
Right.
It could be the Empire, because we know that Fennec worked for the Empire. That's what we got told in The Mandalorian, that she was known for working for the Empire. So it could be the Empire, early Empire hiring her. Or it could be somebody else. And it's too early for it to be Thrawn, because Thrawn isn't even in the Empire yet. He's still out in the Ascendancy at this point.
Yep.
He's been to the Republic once with Anakin that time.
Yep.
But he's still not an Imperial officer, so that's not operative here. I kind of think it's one of the people we already know. Like, it's somebody that we've already encountered. So I kind of feel like it's either Tarkin or the Emperor, that sort of thing, or the Kaminoans. And I lean more toward it. It feels more obvious that it should be the Empire at this point. They could still be holding a surprise third party here, but I'm not sure who would know of Omega at this point.
That's the big question, because I'm not even sure. They've never shown it, but I'm not even sure if Tarkin knows about Omega.
Yeah,
because if you remember in the premiere episode, the Kaminoans say that there were the five. Was it five altered clones, and it was just assumed that Echo was one of the five,
right?
But they were actually subtly referring that Omega was one of the five.
Yeah.
So we don't have all the pieces yet to fit this puzzle together, but
right, it could be the Emperor.
It could be,
because Darth Sidious has that thing where he likes to go around his own people and weaving his webs.
Yep. Or maybe it's Darth Vader, because he's around at this point too. But
wow, the brand new Darth Vader in his, it would. Although he's just got the outfit on at this point. It's really early days for him.
Yep.
Interesting.
I don't suspect we'll see Darth Vader. I think they'll save him for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Yep.
And we'll keep.
So looking forward to that.
Yes. Oh, I think they're filming now, so it's 2022.
Yeah,
is what we're looking
probably
at
after the Andor series. Is my guess.
I can't wait till we get a timeline so we kind of know, and I hope and I assume and I hope that they're going to do it like the Marvel shows where they don't overlap. Yeah. I would like them to kind of be spaced out.
Please.
First of all, for the podcast, but also just because I want more Star Wars content, the entire year and not just all at once. And then
I think they want that. They want to give us a reason to stay subscribed to Disney Plus. So
it's a good marketing technique for sure.
Think of what we've got coming in the next year. We've got Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 3, Andor Cassian, Obi-Wan, and we're not even talking. And no movies have been announced.
Yep.
Like, I mean, and there's other stuff in the wings. That's what's exciting. Is what we haven't even heard about yet.
You missed the Ahsoka show.
Oh my gosh, the Ahsoka show.
That one's going to be so good. And there's even others. The
Rangers, the Visions.
Rangers is unclear. I don't know if you've been noticing. There's speculation out there whether or not that one is currently, I guess, not in active production. So whether that means with Gina Carano no longer in, whether or not that show's going to go forward or not, but I guess they'll let us know. Recasting
or reframing it with a different character as a ranger or something like that.
I expect what they're doing is they're just putting the pause on it until they can kind of figure out what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
So but I mean, beyond that, there's all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah. And then there's the Acolyte, I think is the name of that one.
Oh, which is a High Republic one.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about it other than it's I suspect it might be Palpatine's rise to power, or do you think earlier than that?
It's got to be earlier than that, because the High Republic is like 150 years before the events of Phantom Menace. So it could be Plagueis. Yes.
There we go.
The Acolyte. That would be interesting. We'll see. Or someone who encounters Plagueis, like a Jedi who comes up against them. That would be interesting.
So yeah, there's. It's such a fun time to be a Star Wars fan.
It is. The thing I get left with this episode is, at the end of it, is can they trust Sid? That's the question I keep coming back to. Is at least just for this episode, is she going to turn on them? Is she going to turn them in? Like, she doesn't that we see, but can they trust her? Is she, who can they trust? And that's a big thing.
My gut says yes, because the Jedi trusted her.
Yes, that's true.
So I know the Jedi don't have very much credibility at this point in the galaxy, but for me, they still have that kind of respect. So if they thought she was okay,
it's true.
I think. But even like Sid at the end of the episode, she just assumed that the bounty hunter was after all of them and not just Omega.
Yeah.
So she doesn't even have all the pieces too, and Hunter didn't tell her that it was Omega that they were hunting. Right. So even Hunter's keeping some of the cards close to his chest.
Yeah.
But I think she was right that they do need friends and money, of course. But I think she might be one of those friends that they'll utilize going forward.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to bring up, just from in general, is they're mighty conspicuous walking around in those outfits, which are unlike any other clone trooper outfits. And I wonder how long they're going to be able to continue to do that and not stand out. It's an interesting. I mean, it could be we want them to look like the Bad Batch always, and so we're not going to make a big deal out of their wearing their armor, but they could, and it would be interesting to see them have to deal with that, their identity.
They've seemed to have swapped out of their armor when they need to, on some of the other planets where the Empire was at.
Right.
And
cornered. Yeah.
Yep. So perhaps they're wearing it when they think they're unlikely to encounter other troopers or the Empire. I guess I can totally understand that. I mean, I'm sure they feel the most comfortable in their own armor and work best with that.
True.
But
True.
You make a point too that, I mean, they do stand out.
Yeah, they're not exactly inconspicuous between Echo, Wrecker, and at least Hunter. Like Hunter has the face tattoo, so they do kind of stand out.
Yeah, we'll see where they go with that, but but I mean, at least initially they don't. I mean, they don't look like the other clone troopers. They definitely so they're. And I guess you could just, with the galaxy that big, you could just assume that there's this weird old bunch of groups in armor that are walking around.
Yeah. I know there's probably places you can go that are far from, way out on the outer rim, far from all the other where all the other clone troopers had been and battles were and that sort of stuff. Yeah, they could do it.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Any other final comments from you on this episode?
No, that'll do it. I enjoyed this one. It was a good story. It was a bit of a fun little romp. That little action sequence at the end satisfied the need for the action. One thing I want to mention is I was listening to Father Roderick in his podcast today, and he said something which was really cool about the Bad Batch, which is when you watch it, they really do film it, quote unquote, even though it's animation. They frame the scenes in a very much a Star Wars way, and when you look at it, the scene transitions, like when you have that circular opening on, from when you have a ship flying through, and the way that ships fly past and the camera doesn't quite track, and there's certain things like that very definitively the Star Wars look, and I thought that was very insightful of him to see that. The Bad Batch feels like Star Wars in that way. So I really am appreciating that.
Yeah, and that is totally intentional because it's animated.
Oh, yeah.
There is no actual camera. It's all
exactly.
They can make it look and feel exactly how they want to. And I think even we in previous episodes have talked about the animation style and stuff and how just phenomenal it is. And this feels like Star Wars.
Definitely.
So it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad we still have a number of episodes to go. So that'll do it from us this evening. And so, of course, listeners, we want to know what you thought of this episode of The Bad Batch. And you can let us know in various means. You can email us any comments or feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, or you can leave us comments on our Facebook page at facebook.com/starquestmedia. Or you can tweet us on Twitter at SQPN. And as always, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including Kyle J., Mary S., Renee C., Elizabeth B., and Zach W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at Starquest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and the various other sources, so that way you don't miss an episode. And you can find us on the SQPN YouTube channel. Just be sure to hit that bell to get notifications. And you can find all of our previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back next week as we will take a deeper look into episode 6 of The Bad Batch. So until then, Dom Bettinelli, thank you for sharing The Secrets of Star Wars with me this evening.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on Starquest.